Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rosen Metal Nation, joined today by Troy Norr, a.k.a. KK Fossor of them, new album Manor of the Se7en Gables. Good morning, good morning. How is everything in your world, my friend?
Very fine, my friend.
Nicely played. So, congratulations on the new album, Manor of the Se7en Gables, out today.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It's very exciting for all of us, and it's the ride is just about to begin.
So for those who weren't along for the ride from the beginning, for those who may just be discovering the band, this really all started, I think, like a decade ago from the seeds of a King Diamond cover band, correct? How did it sort of progress from there to where we are now?
Yeah, back just shy a decade ago, we were doing King Diamond tribute, King Diamond cover, and that actually was almost kind of like a farce because I was in a cover band at that time, and I decided, I would love to do one King Diamond song at the time, and turns out one of the guitar players, he knew the whole entire Them album from King Diamond, and so we vowed to do one show for like a Halloween show, and that one show turned into 3.5 years, but sometime during the middle of that time period, the musicians that I was playing with at the time, they were fantastic, stellar musicians, and I just felt that it was just a natural progression to do something maybe in a heavier vein than what actually we were doing, and it just didn't pan out that way. Wound up meeting with Marcus Ulrich at a chance dinner back in 2012, and he was from the band Landfear,
right.
And it was just a chance meeting. It was just really weird, and ultimately, you would never know that the people you start something with, you might wind up with someone else. Not that it was intentional, it just happened that way. Pretty amazing.
And now in Them, you play KK Fossor, the protagonist in this ongoing storyline, sort of an anti-hero pursuing his own righteous cause, if you will. Give us some backstory on the storyline from the debut album, Sweet Hollow, and where it takes us here in Chapter 2.
As you pointed out, KK is an anti-hero of sorts. He's a grave digger by trade, a warlock by faith. And back in the 1800s, KK was a family man. He was a very genuinely good person, and he had a baby named Abby. His older daughter was Miranda, and his wife was Alyssa. And it turns out that the baby died, and the story of Sweet Hollow, the first album, begins at the point where KK was actually distraught over the loss of his daughter. He decided to use his powers to bring her back, and he was actually successful, but the townspeople of Hemsmore actually caught wind of this and thwarted his effort. They destroyed the baby, they took him to the town square, and they forced him to watch his daughter Miranda and his wife Alyssa be burned alive at the stake. And to make sure that he doesn't forget his crimes and being, a sinner as they viewed him, they branded him with an inverted Celtic cross to forever carry the shame of his family for the remaining days that he would be on earth. And so he fled. He fled the town of Hemsmore after this. They let him go. He fled to America, and he fast forwarded a little bit of time, and he became the caretaker of Sweet Hollow Cemetery, which actually is a real cemetery. Its official name is Melville Cemetery, but Sweet Hollow is what the local townspeople call it in real life. So there he became the caretaker, a family. They consisted of several family members that moved into the neighboring town. And these children of the family would pass by the cemetery each and every day, Sweet Hollow Cemetery, to and from school, and they found it to be inviting. So they would go in there and they would play a game called Ghost in the Graveyard, and actually that's where they met KK. They befriended him. The girl, her name was Mary Hawthorne, and the boy was Peter Hawthorne. And KK really took a liking to Mary because she reminded him of his deceased daughter Miranda. So he warned the children not to stay in the cemetery. You really can't be here. You can't come here at night, especially. And there was an evil spirit in the cemetery that inhabited the cemetery called the Crimson Corpse, and that is what summoned Mary to return to the cemetery. She became possessed. She killed her entire family with an axe, except for her grandmother. Her grandmother's name was Henrietta. Henrietta wasn't a weakened weak and fragile older woman. She was a strong woman, and she actually wound up being able to apprehend Mary and bringing her to KK to help, because she heard that he had powers. So KK wound up performing an actual transportation exorcism, and he actually was successful. So at the end of Sweet Hollow, unfortunately, he had to, part of the ceremony, to save her soul, he stabbed her. And the spirit, the Crimson Corpse, entered into his body. She died. Henrietta actually had died during a scuffle while the ceremony was actually being performed. And he had his assistant there, Remsen, who was kind of like an Igor to Frankenstein,
Right.
And they finished the ceremony, and that is where it begins, Manor of the Se7en Gables. Manor of the Se7en Gables actually takes place moments before the ending of Sweet Hollow. From a different perspective, there's another set of kids playing in the cemetery, Sweet Hollow, okay, and this is the beginning of Manor of Se7en Gables. So there's another group of children. They stumble across the actual ceremony being performed at the tail end of it. So they say, oh, we have to go and let the constable know what's happening. This is, what's happening? Is she going to die? They witness this. They take off, and KK finishes the ceremony. As Remsen realizes the townspeople are on their way because of the children alerting them, he says, we have to leave, Master, we have to leave. And KK is actually exhibiting the initial possession. And he's Remsen's asking him, are you okay? Is everything all right? He says, yes, I'm okay, and we must leave. KK does say to the body of Mary, but you shall return once again. They flee, and they flee north to a town, Salem, Massachusetts, to a real house of the Se7en Gables, in this case, Manor of the Se7en Gables. They take refuge there. He knows that it's known to be run by a coven, and they take him in, and they try to protect him and Remsen. But what happens is the townspeople back at Sweet Hollow, they're looking for KK. They're not aware of Remsen, but they're looking for KK, and there's all these dead bodies. You have the whole entire Hawthorne family were killed. You have Henrietta, she's dead in the cemetery, and the lifeless body of Mary on an altar in the ceremony, in the cemetery. And the children described to the constable who, this disfigured man, they knew it was him because they couldn't find him. They contracted Peter Thompson, who's the last known witch hunter. He hails from England, and he travels, and he hunts down KK and finds him at the manor in Salem. As he's infiltrating the manor, there's one particular maid, a scullery maid named Sarah. She actually took Remsen and KK in initially, and she's the one who, took a liking to them and tried to help them and convinced the coven to allow them to stay. But right before Peter Thompson infiltrated the manor, Sarah was a key part in convincing the coven to cleanse KK of his possession of the Crimson Corpse. They're successful. Shortly after, Peter Thompson infiltrates the manor, and as he's doing so, Sarah leads them to a secret stairwell to escape. It leads through a tunnel up and around a lake, which is on the opposite side of the manor. And she says this is the way out, and KK stays. He decides to stay, and he tells Remsen, go on, this is the way out. And Remsen actually has a purpose. There's actually a second part of their overall plan that we don't know about yet. So Remsen flees, and he escapes. Unfortunately, KK and Sarah are apprehended. Peter Thompson brings them to town council. The jury decides that Sarah and KK are guilty, and Sarah is guilty of harboring this criminal. They execute her by stone pressing. She dies. KK, so distraught, he casts a malicious evil spell on the entire jury and destroys them all. The whole council is dead. So Peter Thompson takes it into his own hands to finish the job, which is destroy the manor. He burns the entire manor down with the rest of the witches in there, and he takes KK to the town square, and he tells them, he says, listen, back in the Hemsmore, when your wife and daughter were burned alive at the stake, it was I who did it, and I did it for pleasure. So KK, he's done. He's bound to the stake as Peter Thompson's telling him this, and and just basically taunting him with this a horrific memory that's brought back into the forefront of his mind. KK just says, "I'll be back, and I'm gonna take care of you." And then he lights KK on fire. So that's pretty much the whole story up until now.
But there will probably be another chapter, people, so we don't know what's going to happen. Now, this originally started, in your mind anyway, as a one-album project, and now it's blown into this. We've got 2 chapters, there may be a third, there may be more, but there's so much more to this band than... Because this isn't just an album concept, this is a band concept, not just a storyline. The band name and logo and imagery, there's been a lot of thought put into this.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting because there are a number of groups, especially in heavy metal, where the groups do have concept albums, and I can appreciate what those groups have done to bring those works to life. It's really involved. I think this might be a little different because this is not just a concept album, like you said. It's the whole entire thing is a concept.
Right.
And the story is literally continuous. It's not like, it's a 3-part, trilogy. There might be time, like a time jump in between or whatnot. It's literally, the story has continued, consecutively without, drop of a beat. So that what makes it a little different. But one rule we always follow, we say this every time we're writing anything regarding this project: music is first. Music is number 1. Story is number 2. So me, being, kind of like a mad scientist, I'm the one who stays awake late at night thinking about all these crazy things, how the story would work. I toss it around with the other guys, and, they laugh, they chuckle, they say, "Oh, you're crazy." But, in the end, what you hear is what you hear, and what you read and see. And this album really amazes us because of everything, that the visual, the audio, and the thematic content. It's just, it's gripping.
Yeah, and you guys did a fantastic job on this record. And I got to imagine there's some challenges in this because you're over here in America, as is half the band. The other half, including Marcus Ulrich, are over in Germany, and he's sort of the principal musical writer of a lot of this. Given that it's a concept piece, how difficult was it to coordinate the writing?
Not difficult at all. You have to thank the internet and Facebook for that, because without the internet, without Facebook Messenger, because that's what we use primarily as as like a chatting, instant messaging application. Plus, we would send files to each other. It was just definitely an integral part of making this possible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. But most of the time, the way we work, we're all big boys. We all have to be pros about what we need to do. We all have a responsibility and obligation when we're committing to this. Everybody knows what they have to do. So musically, the last record, Marcus Ulrich, he wrote all the music, and everybody wrote their own individual parts outside of the core rhythms.
Right.
Okay. But on this record, Marcus Johansson, the other guitar player, who hails from Chicago, Illinois, he wrote three of the musical. So there's 9 musical tracks. Well, if you want to include the interludes, there's 11. So out of 11 actual musical tracks, he wrote 3. He wrote Maleficium, he wrote The Secret Stairs, and he wrote the intermezzo, Penel Dure. His style is definitely, it fits in. And what really makes it great working with these 2 guitar players, besides that, now we're like family now. It's just amazing how we didn't know each other from a hole in the wall, and we wound up, we look forward to seeing each other. But besides from that, you can hear one guitar player, he's very European sounding, and the other guitar player, this is my opinion, and the other guitar player, he sounds American. I love the contrast, especially with when they play solos. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Could be partially, something to do with it. Also, obviously, influences definitely come into play as well. Obviously, there's a lot of variables, but I do notice that there's 2 distinct styles in writing and in soloing, and I really appreciate that.
Well, and you guys, beyond the storyline, there were definitely some things that you guys did to evolve the band's sound on this record. I'm assuming that's part of it. And I don't know if it was intentional or just the progress of growth or not.
Well, there's one big factor that was added this time around, as opposed to the debut record, Sweet Hollow, is Paul Sabu. Paul Sabu, the fantastic singer, songwriter, musician. He is known for working with bands like Alice Cooper, David Bowie. He's also done a number of solo projects and worked with many other bands. He actually contributed some additional backing vocal tracks. I had actually personally worked with Paul Sabu on another project called Secret Society, which consisted of songs from, it was 5 songs, consisting of different singers for each song. And Paul Sabu, to create the consistency, he did additional backing vocals on all the songs, and he also did one song himself on that track. And that record is called The Induction, and it's out. It's been out for a few months now. It's fantastic. Another stellar produced EP. And so anyway, me working with Paul, I was talking with him. I said, you know what, Paul, it would be really great if you could do 1 or 2 songs on the Them album. Maybe more of the more semi-commercial, more radio-friendly hit. He said, I would love to, but why don't I just do all of them? I said, wow. Okay. So, there's a little bit of Paul in each song. Some songs a little less than others. But the way I personally work, or I have worked on this record, I have multiple vocal tracks. So there's me in different harmonies, different voices, and then he added another layer. So it came out insane. We're very happy with it. If Paul will work with us again, we will work with him again. If not, then this was a great experience. But he was definitely the one different element. Plus, our drummer is different than the last album. The last album, it was Kevin Talley, who at the time was with Suffocation.
Right.
And Kevin, he was very busy. Suffocation was touring all over. He did the record. And actually, Suffocation, at one point, they rehearsed in my basement for about 8 months. A lot of people, I kept that hush-hush. Even my friends locally, they didn't know. But Suffocation was rehearsed in my basement. So Kevin Talley, he used to stay at my house. We became friends. And he would hear me writing the Sweet Hollow album. And he'd say, wow, this stuff is really great. Do you have a drummer? No. This is, a few years back. And he said, I'll do it. Okay. And initially, Them was, like you said, it was geared for one record. It was geared for, just a recording project. We never thought we'd be playing shows. From there, we were direct support for Halloween in 2016, early 2016, throughout U.S. and Canada. And then we did a slew of dates on our own and various festivals in Europe in 2017 into 2018. And it was very difficult, the beginning of 2018, because that's when we started to record Manor, the Se7en Gables, and we still had obligations to fulfill from a live perspective. So we had to actually go back to Europe 2 times between January and May. We had to play a number of shows. So you have to switch gears. So recording is completely different gear set than playing live. It was very difficult, not a little difficult. That was the most difficult part of doing this whole album. And at one point, I actually got sick, and I was sick for a few weeks, and that we were a little worried about what was going to happen. And but I pulled through, and we did what we had to do, and I got better and did all the shows and finished the record. And and by the way, we had multiple engineers working on this project. But some highlights were a studio called Frequency Studio in White Plains, New York. That's where we recorded the drums, bass, and vocals. Yes, Mike LaPon recorded the bass on this album, just like he did on the last album. And why isn't Mike playing with us live? Well, he's in so many groups, and he's touring with Ross the Boss, and Mike would love to be here. One day we'll connect, but the band can't stop. The band must continue. So, we have another bass player, a live bass player, Alex Palma from the band Septagon, and he's a great player. He plays all of Mike's parts. He's a great person, and he looks like Joey DeMeo from Manor. So what he does, and it's great having him play, and it's great seeing him. Like I said, it's like we're all family. Not like we're all family, and we really look forward to seeing each other and enjoying some beer and have some laughs. And it's very interesting because half of the group is from America and half are from Germany, and we explore and we have new adventures together. It's really, really a lot of fun.
Well, it's funny. It was Mike LaPond when he and I were chatting about his first Silent Assassins album that sort of turned me on to them, and that's where I sort of started following along with what was going on. But let's talk about some of the songs on the album. You guys launched Witchfinder as the first single, and I think you have sort of a seminal band track there that's like a microcosm of the band as a whole. If you want to know them, listen to this song. I don't think you're ever going to get away from that one. That's like your Number of the Beast.
You know what, you're right. Actually, we've been playing this song for a year before we recorded it. And it was so funny because the song, we knew we had to play it. I was running out of time. So quite a few shows, I sang the song using, just scat singing, meaning just there were no discernible lyrics yet. But I knew what the vocal mapping was. That was consistent from day one. I knew what harmonies would be, and etc. But I didn't have lyrics the first handful of shows we played it. And people loved it. Yeah, this is a great song, And we used to end our set with that song. So as you said, it's definitely a song that will probably be played forever, for the life of the band, live.
And one of the things that I really appreciate about the album is musically there are a multitude of styles melded together here. Obviously you got your power metal and your traditional heavy metal and everything, but like Refuge in the Manor to my ear is very much a speed-driven thrash monster. Something like As the Sage Burns has some progressive elements, but even a little hardcore flavor on some of your vocalizations. And then there's even hints of death metal that appear on like Punishment by Fire and whatnot.
That's true. Well, our backgrounds consist of, various subgenres of heavy metal. You have some musicians that hail from progressive metal, death metal, thrash metal. So when you mix that all up, well, you have them. How many bands that play songs that you would say, wow, that's thrash, they have keyboards. It's mind-boggling what these guys come up with, and that music really drives the story. Believe me, we carefully plotted, literally like a mood chart, whereas, okay, we want a bombastic beginning, we want it to die out, and then build up to a climatic ending. And I have to tell you, successful in each case. I've spoken to a number of different people that have been in the industry for many years, and actually one of them, which I won't name his name, but he managed a very, very big band, and I've been in close contact with him, and he told me, he said, look, first 3 records, don't change a thing. We changed some minor things, but the core, don't change it. Your formula, don't change it. So we pretty much, we're on board for that. That's why, as things, we're slightly tweaking it, so it's evolving and it's progressing in a positive way.
Right, but you're still them. That's, that trademark style and sound is all there. Now, how did you guys end up working with Dave Otero, and what did he bring to the table?
Oh, wow. Dave Otero, actually, I became in contact with him because I'm very good friends with Monty Connor, who was at Roadrunner. And Monty, I met him when I was in the King Diamond tribute band. I had Hal Patino at the time from King Diamond. He actually he stayed with me for a few weeks. He performed with our King Diamond tribute for about 4 shows. And we met Monty, and Monty put me on the spot. Hey, I don't believe you can sing like King Diamond. And I did, and there was this whole big video segment that was videotyped by Rick Ernst, who created the documentary Get Thrashed, who's a very close friend of mine. And they posted it, and it went viral. And actually, you put in like Monty Connor, like on YouTube, Monty Connor, King Diamond tribute, and you'll see it. It's hysterical, and that's how I met Monty. Monty, I called him up one day after that. I said, Monty, I'm revisiting my band from when I was a kid called Cold Steel. Who should I use? He told me Mark Lewis or Dave Otero. And he told me why I would use one versus why I would use the other. Well, ultimately, I went with Dave Otero. And Dave Otero for Cold Steel America Idol, which was an EP that was released back in 2013. And I have to tell you, working with Dave, I said, this is the man. Dave Otero's known for various different types of metal, but he's very strong with death metal. And I have to tell you, he brings a really solid modern production, which is what we wanted. We wanted classic-sounding music modernized. That's Dave Otero. And I have to tell you, he told me we had our Cold Steel EP was mastered by Ted Jensen,
right.
the great Ted Jensen from Sterling Sound. I mean, walking into that room in Manhattan, I sat down. Ted Jensen was sitting in the center of a room, huge room, 4 speakers in each corner, and it was just, there was nothing else in the room but a couch behind him, and we were on the couch, me, one of the guitar players, and one of the main engineers who recorded Cold Steel America Idol. Monty Connor sits in, he slaps his hands, he says, let's hear this thing. Monty knew I was coming in, and it was a chance to see me and check out what I was doing, and Ted did it. Ted did the mastering. When I tell you, Dave Otero said, no disrespect to Ted, but my master won't be that drastically different. And you'll compare it, and I'm just telling you. So just keep that in mind, because I master while I mixed. So when I went back and I listened to his master versus Ted's, I really couldn't tell. You really couldn't tell. Maybe on vinyl, maybe. Really, really stellar mastering from Dave Otero as well. So we decided Sweet Hollow and Manor of the Se7en Gables were both mixed and mastered by Otero, but recorded elsewhere. If we do another record, we're doing everything with him. Everything. He is magical behind the board. Magical. Flatlineaudio.com, Dave Otero. Hire him. He is reasonably priced. He does fantastic, stellar, Hollywood style, production, and he's reasonable. He's really reasonable, and he's a great person and very hospitable.
Absolutely.
Check it out.
So before we get out of here, I understand that you're also sort of working on this graphic novel or visualization concept of sorts as a companion piece to the whole story.
That's correct. That I'm working with an artist. His name is Blair Webb, and he's pretty. He's an up and coming artist in the comic book community. Great, fantastic work. If you look him up, Blair Webb, Webb, and he's actually going to be drawing the whole graphic novel for us. The whole plan is, if there is a third record, okay, this will come out to coincide with the release of that third record. If not, this will still come out, because it's a story that has to be penned. That's who we're going with, Blair Webb.
Well, you started writing the new album right after you finished the first album, so there has to be at least one more chapter to this. Have you guys already started writing what would be part 3?
Yes, it's called Return to Hemsmore.
Nice. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be an if there's a third album. It's a when. But right now we will revel in Manor of the Se7en Gables. Thank you so much, KK. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about the album. It's a fantastic record. Hopefully we'll get a chance to catch you live, because it's a very theatrical and wonderful show from everything I've heard.
If you do, please come over and say hey.
Absolutely. You take care of yourself, brother, and congratulations again.
You too. Thank you so much. You take care. Have a great day.